We are here at the Centro Justicia. Today is May 26th, and with 9 members present, that constitutes a quorum to conduct today's public hearing. So, to introduce the members of the committee that are here with us today, we'll start off with the council table, far left. Your right is Representative Selena Babauta, the chair for JGO. Next to her is Representative Leila Staffler, the chair for Education. Representative Denita Yanktamai, the chair for Commerce and Tourism and Cannabis. Representative Richard Lizama, the chair for PUTC. Representative Christina Sablan, the chair for Health and Welfare, and also the author of the bill that is up for the public hearing. Representative Edwin Probst, the chair for Gaming. In the jury box, Representative Joel Camacho, representative of Precinct 4. Up here with me is the vice chair, Representative Karina Magofnia, and I am the chair, Donald Bangonia. And assisting the committee, we have our legal counsel, Joe Tyrone, our legislative assistant, Cameron Nicholas, our sergeant at arms, Pete Tuai, and our IT, Delbert. And so, again, with 9 members present, I call this public hearing to order. We now move on to the next item on the agenda, the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion? A motion was made and seconded. Discussion. All right. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We now move on to the next item, which is the opening statement. Good afternoon, members, and good afternoon to the general public. We are also live, and so thank you to those who are tuning in. What we have before the committee is House Bill number 22-98, authored by Rep. Christina Sablan, and that is to reestablish a CNMI minimum wage by repealing and reenacting 4 CMC subsections 9221, 9222, 9223, to repeal and amend certain sections of the Minimum Wage and Hour Act, to abolish the Wage Review Committee, and for other purposes. The committee has invited 3 entities. We've invited the mayor of Rota, we've invited the Rota Municipal Council, and the resident director for the Department of Labor. And so we will begin with those 3 entities and then open the floor up to the general public to come after. And so again, we thank you for coming out this afternoon. And with that, I would like to open the floor to any one of those 3 entities that are here with us today.
Thank you, Carlos, and good afternoon once again. And likewise, welcome to the island of Rota. And thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, Sizos Masi. I just wanted to let this body, distinguished body, know that the increase of minimum wage, I'm in support of any and all. However, I feel that this is not the right time, because we are just now sort of like crawling out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and the businesses here on island is really hurting. So perhaps if we help the businesses grow a little, then possibly we can revisit this idea. Once again, like I said, I'm in support of this. However, it's not really the right time. So, Mr. Chairman, that's really, this is really my position on this particular House bill, the 22-98. Like I said, we probably should have visited. We should visit later on um, when the economy grows. So that's my position, members, chairman, and also I'd like to ask to be excused because I am performing a wedding ceremony at 5, and I need to go back to the office and make sure that the documents are correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think we have the council here unless there's a representative. Okay. With that, can I invite the resident director for the Department of Labor?
Good afternoon to all again. I'd like to read out my written testimony for today's hearing. I want to express my appreciation in allowing me the opportunity to provide a testimony on House Bill number 22-98, excuse me. The increase of wages and increments is a practical approach in ensuring that both employees and employers have the opportunity to gain and adjust. More income means more consumer buying power. Sorry. Which is very favorable, especially during these challenging times. Another positive that these increases bring is good employee morale. If you take care of your employees, they maximize their productivity. Sorry. And work environments improve. As what was mentioned on this bill, the minimum wage has been at a standstill since 2017. Oftentimes, people look for government employment because it is a more lucrative investment of their time and energy. However, even government positions still employ people at the current minimum wage or close to it, but definitely not less. From the information that I have gathered, not all private businesses or corporations offer their employees health and life security, which makes the current minimum wage even more difficult to survive on. The cost of living in Rota is astronomical, and many of you know just how much we rely on agriculture and native food gathering just to survive. On the other hand, should this bill pass, will we, the consumers, pay for the price of the increase? Will there be a regulatory body that will ensure that the increased wages will not effectuate on increased fee on services and consumer goods? Will the government offer relief packages to businesses in terms of tax levies? How can we prevent businesses from reducing their workforce to meet the required minimum wage proposed on this bill? This responsibility falls in your capable hands. As with anything, checks and balances must be applied. In this case, these concerns are best addressed by entities who have the expertise in economic challenges. All the other changes or line items that were struck, I cannot opine as the appropriate titles have been applied, and I have no further information in the Wage Review Committee, and I have no knowledge of their effectivity. In closing, this department's role to our community is to adhere to, implement, and regulate all laws, regulations, and policies set forth for the Department of Labor. More importantly is we are here to support all current and potential workforces. With that, my stance on House Bill number 22-98 is to fully support its passage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Director Cabrera. If you would like to provide your comments to the committee, we greatly appreciate it. Also, I apologize for not mentioning this earlier. Please, oh no, sorry, this is general announcement. Thank you. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and any entity you may be representing, or if you're here as a private citizen. Keep your comments to 5 minutes, but based on the crowd, I'll provide some leeway. And if you have any written comments, whether it be yours or someone who you've reached out to that would like to provide those comments, we gladly accept them. And so, as I've stated earlier, we've invited three entities. I don't see anyone from the municipal council, and so with that, we now open the floor to the general public. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Manglonia and members of the House Standing Committee on Ways and Means. My name is Stephen McCoy, President of the Rota Chamber of Commerce, and I am speaking on behalf of the Rota Chamber of Commerce, representing the business community of Rota, serving a population of 1,893 people. The Rota Chamber of Commerce would like to express strong opposition to House Bill 2298 as introduced. In House Bill 2298, Section 1, line 6 to line 9, there is no supporting numerical data included that illustrates the average cost of living for those states that had an increased minimum wage requirement. In order to justify raising the minimum wage for the CNMI, actual numerical statistical evidence, including average cost of living, housing, goods, and services would need to be analyzed and provided. In addition, there are still 17 states that adhere to the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, and 5 states that have no minimum wage requirements, according to the consolidated minimum wage table obtained from the U.S. Department of Labor website. In House Bill 2298, there is no data showing the economic impact of the previous minimum wage increase in 2017 to $7.25 as favorable, which would further justify an increase in the current minimum wage requirements. In House Bill 2298, Section 1, line 16 to line 20, it states that according to the 2021 CNMI prevailing wage study conducted by the Department of Commerce, Central Statistics Division, dated May 25th, 2021, the CNMI's median hourly wage was $9.97. However, that is the middle value for both private and public sectors. When it comes down to the private sector, the median hourly wage drops to $8.33 an hour. This is significant as the proposed raise in minimum wage would have the greatest negative impact on small private businesses. In addition, according to the prevailing wage study, there is no data that is provided for the median hourly wage per island. As such, with Rota having a population of 1,893, Tinian having a population of 2,044, and Saipan having a population of 43,385, according to the 2020 census population of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands municipality and village, the data provided as the median hourly wage is skewed in favor of living wages in Saipan. According to the Congress of the United States Congressional Budget Office July 2019 report on the effects of employment and family income of increasing the federal minimum wage, in general, increasing the minimum wage tends to reduce employment in 2 ways. First, higher wages increase the cost of employers of producing goods and services. The employers pass some of these increased costs, onto the consumers in the form of higher prices, and those higher prices in turn lead consumers to purchase fewer goods and services. The employers consequently produce fewer goods and services, so they reduce their employment of both low-wage workers and higher-wage workers. Second, when the cost of employing low-wage workers goes up, the relative cost of employing higher-wage workers or investing in machines and technology goes down. Some employers, therefore, respond to a higher minimum wage by reducing their low-wage staff and shifting toward those substitutes. That reduces employment among low-wage workers, but might increase it among higher-wage workers. It is important to peg the minimum wage issue to the economic condition of the CNMI and further to each respective island. We cannot compare the GNP of the US with the CNMI and expect the same result of business activity. A small increase over time is a more sensible policy with regards to wage increase that is supported with applicable data. In conclusion, at this time and with the uncertain economic future of the CNMI, we cannot support House Bill 2298. We will be happy to reconsider the matter when there is more evidence and data collected to support the proposition. Thank you again for your time, Chairman Manglonia, and members of the House Standing Committee on Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Chairman Manglonia,
Yes.
privilege.
Recognize.
Is it, can we at this time ask just clarifying questions of our testifying witness? I just wanted to make sure that we understand the position of the Rota Chamber of Commerce. So I recognize that you said that the chamber strongly opposes the bill in its current form, but you do say that perhaps a small increase over time would be more sensible if there was data to support that, right? And what, in the view of your members, would be a sensible small increase over time?
We have not come to a general term on that.
Mhm.
The main goal here today was just to let you guys know that, Rota and Saipan are two different things. This may be great for Saipan, but when you apply it to Rota, it's going to take away jobs and such. We haven't really discussed what
Do
we
you
think
have
would
the
be.
data to support that?
I would have to get back with those guys that helped me write this.
Okay. And how many businesses does the chamber currently represent?
We're in our infancy right now, so we're still developing, but the majority of the business community on Rota.
Okay, but it's not the chamber's position that there should never be a wage increase ever?
That's not our position.
That's not your
no.
position,
It's
okay.
just that it should be more gradual.
Okay,
It seems pretty, like it starts pretty aggressively and then, like I said, speaking on behalf, it just seems like it will eliminate some jobs because employers will not be able to justify that big increase in such a short amount of time without increasing costs, but also decreasing labor.
yeah, okay. So the issue then is the 55 cents over 4 years. That seems too aggressive.
And I do apologize, I wasn't prepared for questions.
No,
so
that's okay.
I would have had more information with me had I been prepared.
I think I'm just excited that there is a Rota Chamber of Commerce
and we're in our
testifying
infancy.
at this hearing. Okay, and then my I guess my last question, is it the chamber's position that there should be different minimum wages for Rota versus like a lower wage for Rota versus a wage for Saipan?
I think it's more like when you guys are making policy, trying to make policy for, say, Saipan, just to consider that Rota is a whole different situation. We only have 1,800 people. We don't have, competing like higher. We don't have a lot of money moving around Rota as it is.
Okay,
And so this would just put less, in our opinion.
okay. But you're not advocating a lower minimum wage for
No,
Rota
no,
versus
no.
Saipan?
We're not advocating that. We're
Okay.
just saying that keep all islands in mind, not just Saipan when you're making policy. Or trying to.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCoy, again. At this time, the floor is open. You may proceed. Thank you.
See, thank you for this opportunity. And first of all, I'd like to introduce myself as Pedro de la Cruz. I'm with the private sector, which I've been in business in the Commonwealth for almost 30 years. And also, I am a member and the board of directors with the recently chartered Rota Chamber of Commerce. And the presentation made by Mr. McCoy is an effort, the group effort, of which we all ask that we oppose the passage of this bill. First of all, when I first made an initial cursory review of this, what do you call it, the House bill, my initial reaction was this: what is the purpose of this? Is it to increase and to develop the Commonwealth, further? Or is it the purpose of this legislation is a political gain for, you know, each one of you, everyone in the administration, and they're all looking at the private sector as the source of, what do you call this, support to find additional money to fund the lavish expenditure of the government. And also, I find that the comparison used on this bill to compare the vibrant economy of the various states in the Union compared to the Commonwealth, I certainly believe that this is an overkill, of which you take the economy of, let's say, New York or San Francisco, whose population base is in the millions, and the gross domestic product within that certain community is in the billions, and they can support the increase of labor. Well, the Commonwealth, when we only have less than 50,000 people, and the revenue generated monthly is, you can project and can see every month because it is the same amount because of the dismal economic condition. Right now, the Commonwealth does not have a viable industry. We are at the mercy of the federal government. And to impose a graduated minimum wage rate in a short time, the negative effect of this will have a multiplier effect among the islands. Because for me, as an employer, will increase the cost of of labor. Meaning that if this is to increase the cost of labor, and there's only so much amount of money that I'm bringing in a month, of which is stable, and there's no increase because of the population, of which there are no, we call this, there are no, what do you call this, extra dollars that will come into my revenue. That means that I have two choices: either to reduce the number of employees that I have so that I can accommodate the cost increase of labor, or jack up my prices. Because as of now, due to the inflationary factor, due to the worldwide oil increase, as well as other factors, that I had recently have to increase my labor rate to my customers. I had to increase my equipment rental to my customers with an average of not less than 15%. And I'm looking at another increase that if this thing keeps continuing up, I have to survive. Because if I don't, we're all going to close down. And the thing is that the government will impose this: you increase your labor rate, well, we well, we have the choice of either to let employees go out, but at the same time, they require you to pay your taxes and obligation on time. And if you don't, there's a fine, penalty, interest, compounded interest. So this type of legislation is not good at this time. What I like to see is that the legislature and the rest of the government should look forward in introducing some incentives for the business community. I know that there are incentives, but they're only available for foreign investors. There are no incentives for local businesses other than raise taxes, obligations, and all that. And it's killing us because the only thing that I've been doing right now is making money and pay taxes to the government, like I said, so that the government can continue to fund lavish spending. And that's not right. Secondly, the present federal minimum wage is working okay. It allows us to establish an entry level for employees. But let me tell you this, that as an employer, I only do the 725 that's for new employee when it comes in so that they give them an opportunity to develop himself. And they obtain their salary increase as they progress. My company right now is paying as much as $12 to $15 an hour to my employees. And these are the employees that have been with me for over 20 years. My average number of people that are employed with me is 10 years. So 725 of course, is the entry level. But remember this, that every year the Department requires that the prevailing wage be established, and that is the wage rate that we have to base ourselves to pay certain category of employees. So, this is an incentive. But to put in and establish a graduated minimum wage to increase in certain number of days, those employees that are getting, that the entry level, that will not give them an incentive for them to improve themselves so that they could get higher rate. They'll say, oh, wait, within 120 days, 1 year, my salary is going to go up. So the productivity of that employee is zero. We like to see that our employee produce, and as they produce, we pay them right. So, so imposing a certain rate is not. And also, I question this, whether the minimum wage rates with this bill, whether the government is also required to pay the government rate. Because I know this, it's not, because there is a salary schedule for the government that they use, and they do not base themselves on the established wage. So if you want to do this, get everybody to comply. Then again, you're going to see somebody say, hey, we got to have to raise taxes so that we can fund all this. So ladies and gentlemen, members of the legislature, I ask that you table this piece of legislation and let's reconsider this again when the economy of the Commonwealth would come back. And please give some thoughts of giving incentives to the private sector, and at the same time, I recommend that the legislature, the government establish a blue ribbon committee or commission to study what is the best and viable enterprises and industries that the Commonwealth can engage to other than the visitor industry. And if you have to hire expertise off island, do it, because this will be a good purpose. Thank you. And if you have any question, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you, Mr. De La Cruz. We'll reserve questions for after, unless they're clarifying questions. Other than that, we'll hold off on any additional questions.
I will be happy. I'll be willing to sit down to some of you, okay? To get my thoughts. Because let me tell you this, that when I started in government, I was with the Marianas District Government, okay? And I was the Economic Development Officer that time. And it was our office that first established the statistical division, which is the cost consumer price index. That's when we started this, and we look at this so that we can look at how are we going to go on. And the current statistical records are updated, and the legislature should use that. Because, the inflationary factor here in Rota is about 30 to 40% higher than Saipan, okay? Because of the cost of goods, the transportation, and all this. But, let's have to be practical, okay? And live within our means. Because increasing the cost of labor, you're not going to increase the number of people that are going to work. No, the employers are not going to hire because there is not enough money to go around. And that's the bottom line.
Thank you, Mr. De Cruz. I'll allow this one question, and then we'll dismiss
Yes.
the speaker, and just to allow other members the opportunity to provide their comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your testimony, Mr. De La Cruz. I do recognize that you're one of the oldest employers in private sector employers on Rota, and I'm glad that you brought up the prevailing wage, because the prevailing wage rate does apply here on Rota. And you mentioned that you already pay at least some of your employees 12 to 15 an hour, so
Oh, yes.
above minimum wage.
Yes.
And could you just give us an idea of your total workforce for your companies? How
Okay.
many are actually at minimum wage, and how many are making over minimum
Okay.
wage?
This is a couple of years ago. At one time, I was employing almost like 40 people, okay? But because of the change with the economy, the introduction of the federal wages and the requirements of the hiring, now I am down to only maybe about total between Rota Merchandising and DK Brothers and all this, I have about 15 employees. And I do not have any employee right now that are being paid $7.25.
Okay. So all
Okay.
15 are above minimum wage.
All up about from $8 up to about $15. And those are the ones that they have gotten an increase because of their exemplary, and the achievement that they've been doing, okay? That I will give an employee an increase when I see their capability, and at the same time too, I try to give them a reasonable and attractive salary so that they can stay with me. Because, there are not too much people now to hire in the private sector. And let me tell you this. They all wanted to work with the government. Of course, working for the government maybe a couple of years ago would be good because there are a lot of perks. retirement with a defined contribution, which is guaranteed, health insurance, life insurance, sick leave, annual leave, and then a lot of personal holidays that they take, you know, and in the and with us in the private sector, we cannot afford to spend them. Okay, probably we'll give them 1 week, to get out. But with the perks with the government, we cannot compete. And now, no, I don't know whether the people will continue to seek employment with the government because of the fact that the defined contribution of the retirement program has been cut off. And on the current retirement program is factored and sort of based like the 401k program, of which the employee, of course, contribute to to their retirement fund program, but they are also responsible to place that in the market, okay, so that you build their retirement funds. And you happen to work in the government and you only have $30,000 in your retirement fund, that's it, that's what you have. But if you have a very successful investment program, of which I know for that some of my families, my sons and my nieces, my nephews, that they are working with a 401k, that their investment portfolio has increased about so many, that can fund themselves for the next 15 to 20 years of their retirement. Because you gotta have to work with the market. And if you don't know to work with the market and you don't have somebody to guide you, you're doomed.
Thank you, Mr. De
Okay.
Cruz. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your comments. At this time, the floor is now open to any member of the public.
Hi, my name is Tina Ramirez, and I am just here because I love Rota. I don't belong to anybody. So, and I apologize, I'm not a political animal, but thank you for letting me speak. When I was young, I was a high school dropout, a single mom who worked for minimum wage. I struggled a lot, so I understand the arguments. At this time, my husband is still at home in Kansas City running a business, so I understand both sides of the argument. Minimum wage is meant for people that are unskilled or just entering the job market. The free market determines what skilled workers earn. If all the skilled workers' pay goes up, or all the unskilled worker pay goes up, then the skilled workers also want and expect more. At the same time, if a company has X amount of money to pay employees and you raise their pay, it would mean the company would get rid of employees that aren't absolutely necessary, making less jobs available. In your amendment, California, Washington, D.C., and New York were referenced. Even at my salary, I would struggle to live in those places. So comparing Rota or the CNMI to those kinds of places in the US is not right, because those are high dollar places. I live in Kansas City. My husband still lives in Kansas City. And because of COVID and the downturn in business, he hasn't been able to come out here. Where it is a more even type place to live. It's not as expensive as a lot of places in the US. And please don't try and be like the US. I love Rota the way it is. Um, in the US, I pay $3,000 a year in taxes for a house that is totally paid off, been paid off for a while. So those are the kind of costs in taxes. I pay 40% of my salary in Kansas for taxes. So these are costs that I don't have to pay here, making what I do earn go further in the CNMI. I have put a pen and paper to it, and I could live on $7.25 an hour here, not at home, but here I could. Just because I'm cheap, I could live really cheap. The low rent here offsets the high food prices. I do think your efforts would be much more positive for the island if you would encourage tourism, online businesses, and agriculture instead of an amendment to govern free enterprise and would ultimately lose jobs for the island. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and to the honorable members of this council or committee again. So I do have a written statement, in response to Chairman Donald Manglonia's request for comment. And I'm hoping that by the end of my short little speech here, I'll be able to offer some perspective in regards to House Bill 22-98. So would it be okay if I read out the letter and then comment, or should I just submit this? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read the letter. So, Half a Dozen Tiro Representative Manglonia, in response to request for comment on House Bill 22-98. I believe that the CNMI is still in the early stages of economic recovery. Therefore, any additional financial obligations imposed onto small businesses will only exacerbate the effects of inflation and drive up costs. Mandating wage increases will only force businesses to pass on the additional cost to its customers, hence increasing the price of food, gas, commodities, and professional services. Increased wages may also result in reduction of work hours, unemployment, or potentially business closures. Therefore, please consider these factors before moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Duzmasi. So now to the perspective portion of, so it's already 4:30, so I'm just going to come in as a member of the public, member of the community. In my view, there has to be a win-win. The way the bill is written only benefits one group, and that's the workforce. So the businesses also have to benefit in some way, right? So I use the power of suggestion and suggest that the community development offset, if we're going to increase the cost of labor, we should decrease the cost of something like utilities, so that way there's an offset. So in other words, the business has got to be able to afford these changes and compensate for the loss. Otherwise, they're just going to take it and pass the cost on to the consumers. And then I get the feeling that we're going to be back here in 4 years asking for another wage increase. If we don't, so it's going to get into that cycle of just increasing of prices and inflation, and it's a never-ending cycle. It's just going to keep going up. And again, with this type of law, it's actually going to change the economic landscape. It's very hard to reverse a law like this. Once we implement, once this bill gets passed and becomes public law, the businesses have to comply. And it's really hard to reverse something like, if we find out 4 years from now that this bill isn't working, it's really hard to go that below $10 an hour, because then people will be acclimated to the new cost. new wages. And it's really, really, really hard to reverse. And that's one of not my concerns also. It's really hard to go back once we move forward with something like this. It's pretty much become a permanent part of the business landscape. And that's my take on that. I hope I was able to offer some perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manglonia.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Rep. Salon. I think that's probably the last one. So if any of you guys, if any of the commenters would like to stick around and maybe engage with the author, you're more than welcome to. But because we've already approached the 1 hour mark, we'll try to wrap it up if there's any more.
I just had a request for Mr. Manglonia to provide his written testimony.
It-
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Oh.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if you could just provide your written testimony.
okay.
And I understand that you also, your department participated in the prevailing wage study.
Yes, yes, we did.
And if
we
you
did.
have data specific to the wages that are being paid, especially in the private sector,
Yes, yes.
on Rota, that would be really helpful for the committee as well.
Okay, definitely. I will communicate with Director Justin Andrews. So they're basically processing the numbers through the Central Statistics Division. So
Thank you.
definitely, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Chairman Manglonia and members of this committee. My name is Justin Manglonia. I'm speaking as member of the community of Rota. The proposed bill under discussion now is a bill to create a favorable impression on workers. But in reality, it will do no good because the business community will increase their products and services commensurate or maybe more than with the rate of increase on workers' minimum wage. There should be a balance, the legislation supporting workers' financial need and the business need to grow. Our economy is in financial crisis. There is no funds to pay for the millions and millions owed to the medical referral, land compensation, retirees' pension, bond credits, court orders, etc., etc. The focus, therefore, should be addressing the critical need for revenue generation legislation. What the legislature should focus on is to bring new investment from outside to increase the revenue of the government by way of new taxes. We need people to come to our island as tourists, as well as people to come and stay. The super rich and famous should be invited to come and build their homes here. Retirees from other countries should also be welcome. Removing Article 12 restriction is certainly an enticement for both investors and people who want to stay. So, thank you. And that is my input for today's hearing. And if you have any question, I am ready to stay until and entertain. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Manglonia. Are those comments?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. At this time, so the commenting period will be open for maybe up until the end of June to allow for all agencies to be much more familiar with the bill. Those who weren't able to make it, or if you know of any individuals that would like to share their thoughts on the bill, and whether it be in support of or against, or even if they would just like to provide any recommendation on how to better this bill, the committee welcomes it. We have yet to do public hearings on Saipan, and so please feel free to reach out to any of the members that you see here. Our contact information can be found on the legislature's website. And so again, thank you all for coming and speaking on as citizen or even as a representative of an entity. It's great to see that the Rota Chamber of Commerce is now being formalized and organized, and so that's moving forward. It's nice to know that there's an organization that the committee or even the legislature can reach out to gather further comments from the business community. And so with that, members, we now move on to the next item on the agenda. Miscellaneous, any member? I recognize Brett Probst.
Thank you, Chairman and colleagues. And I really wanted to just say thank you so much for coming in this evening and sharing with us your thoughts, giving us really great input. It is so important to get this feedback from our communities, and especially for this beautiful island of Rota. You guys have mentioned so much, and being here for the past few days, I can just tell you that it is just it's so beautiful. I can't get over it. Your island is so pristine. It's so clean. It's just gorgeous. And it reminds me so much of how Saipan used to be way back in the day, back in the 70s. Yes, I am that old. But I can just look at, we go into places and the kindness and just everything that the people of Rota give to visitors. I mean, we are part of this Commonwealth, but we're visiting your beautiful island, and we are treated with such kindness, and we just truly are grateful. You have such a special island, filled with such wonderful people. The struggles, we do talk and we do understand. Obviously, shipping is something that has to be brought down, and the cost of goods here. We complain about the cost of goods in Saipan. We come here and we see what you're paying. So my heart goes out to what the challenges for everyone in this beautiful island. But I just want to say that we do take it to heart. We've listened attentively, and we do really appreciate you. And thank you once again for spending this time with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. Any other member? Recognize Rep. Sablon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to express my appreciation to everyone from the municipal government and from the community, the Chamber of Commerce, for your testimonies and for being present today. This committee is certainly interested in hearing the perspectives of everyone who would be impacted by what's being proposed. I would love to hear more from workers as well. I don't know if there's any labor organization, any organization that advocates for workers' interests here in Rota or CNMI wide for that matter, but But I think it's also important for us to hear the perspective of people who are trying to survive on minimum wage. I was making some notes on some of the comments that were made and some of the questions that came up. Yes, this bill would establish gradually over time that, the details, the schedule of increases, that's all up for discussion and debate. It's currently proposed to increase the wage incrementally in 55-cent increments over the course of 4 years. This is based on the approach that was taken the last time the wage was increased, which I think our RD from Labor noted the last time the federal wage was increased for the CNMI was in 2017. But it was done incrementally from beginning in 2007. And so I'd be interested in seeing the data that's specific to Rota. I do take those comments to heart as well. We were working with the data that was available to us through the prevailing wage study and the GAO workforce study. And also looking at data, not just for the top dollar states, which is, I think, what one of the commenters said. We were also looking at data in the region. Guam, for example, also going through a lot of the same economic struggles that we are dealing with. They want to make their wages and working conditions for workers better, even in this pandemic, and they're set to raise their wage to $9.25. So, some things to be aware of. What many people don't know is the wage that is still in the books. The minimum wage that is still in our law is $3.05 an hour. And although it is true, most workers, federal labor standards do apply for most workers, that we still get reports of employers who try to pay $3.05 or even less. And that's just one of the provisions that this bill aims to update. It's not just about increasing the wage to $10 an hour. It's also about updating our wage laws to better protect workers. And there are also discriminatory provisions in the law, for example, that allow people with disabilities, allow Monumco to be paid less than minimum wage. We are proposing to strike those from our books, and modernize our wage laws so that people who are being cheated out of their wages are better protected and have and their rights to pursue their claims are upheld in the CNMI. So I'm completely open and eager to hear more and engage in more conversations from all of you here and from members of the public that are watching. And as the chairman said, this isn't the only opportunity to submit comments. I would like to get some of the data that I think our witnesses who came to testify today mentioned that they could provide. That would be very helpful to the committee as we go forward in deliberating on this proposal. Thank you again, and I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablon. Any other members? All right. Again, thank you to the general public for coming out. Thank you to all our witnesses that we invited. And at this time, can I get a motion for adjournment? All right. A motion was made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. This public hearing is hereby adjourned at 5:10 p.m.